VP Pence picked up two very special guests en route to receiving remains, and this here is the reason why we stand for that flag and for the playing of our national anthem. Vice President Mike Pence made a very important stop in California as he was on his way to Hawaii for a repatriation ceremony for the 55 sets of remains which belong to American military members who served and died during the Korean War, which were turned over unconditionally by North Korea. The Daily Caller is reporting that Fox News host Pete Hegseth, who is an actual U.S. Army veteran himself, spoke about how important the two guests who joined the vice president in California really are. On our way here, the vice president made intentional stop in California. We picked up probably the two most important passengers on that plane, a man and woman who were 4 and 3 years old, little girl and little boy in the 1950s, when they sent their father as, then young men, both pilots, both first lieutenants. Both went to fight in the Korean War, and they recalled to me and recalled in media reports that last hug and that last kiss to their father before they went to that war and ultimately never came home, both shot down, remains never found. They dedicated their lives for the last 60 years finding out what happened to their fathers, what happened to those patriots, warriors who went to fight for us, for every generation of Americans. As you all know, whenever there is a reparational ceremony such as this, it's customary to have family members present, even if the deaths took place decades ago. This ceremony is said to have meant a lot to Vice President Pence since his own father was a Korean War combat vet. Americans have spilled blood on foreign continents for decades, Korea being a great example. The forests, the mountains, the riverbeds, the jungles, the forgotten places in the forgotten war. Those men cannot and should not ever be forgotten. Speaks to the commitment of our government and speaks to the commitment of President Trump and Vice President Pence. The mood on that plane, guys, was as somber and serious and honorable as I have ever seen. This vice president, very focused. It's personal to him too, as you've mentioned. His father was a combat veteran in Korea who did come home. His father had always told him those heroes are the guys who never came home. Those same words come from the lips of guys like myself and Marcus Luttrell and Sean Parnell and vets of every generation. We know who to truly remember, and today we remember them. Let's hope that after 60 years these families can finally have closure and be able to say, my father rests here. And can stop wondering what happened to the men whom we owe everything to. This is why it's outrageous when we see people who make over $2 million a year just to toss around a football not standing for our nation's colors. So many people have died to give them the ability to play ball for such an outstanding nation, and all they do with that gift is disrespect her. Are we perfect? No, we are far from me, but I dare anyone to find a more perfect union than the United States of America. And no, those so-called socialist utopias in Europe are far from being perfect. Here is more on this repatriation ceremony via the Honolulu Star Advisor. 2 Air Force C-17 cargo aircraft will be back-to-back outside Hangar 19 at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam Wednesday for the repatriation to American soil of remains turned over by North Korea, an official said. 55 American flag-draped aluminum transfer cases will be carried off the planes by 2 Joint Service Honor Guard details and arrayed in the hangar for the afternoon ceremony that will include comments by Vice President Mike Pence. The remains will then be transferred to the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency's lab on Hickam for identification. In a statement, Pence said President Donald Trump asked him to participate in the honorable carry ceremony and receive the presumed American remains as they return home. As the son of a Korean War combat veteran, it is deeply humbling to be part of this historic moment, Pence said. We will never forget the sacrifices these brave service members and their families made for our nation and our freedoms. 14 Hawaii residents who are Korean War veterans are expected to attend the ceremony, along with dozens of others from the Vietnam War and veteran organizations such as the American Legion, Military Order of the Purple Heart, Special Forces Association and Veterans of Foreign Wars. AC-17 containing remains of fallen service members departed Wonsan, North Korea, on Thursday Hawaii time, headed to South Korea and accompanied by United Nations Command Korea officials and technical experts from the accounting agency to preliminarily examine the remains. Defense Secretary James Mattis told reporters on Friday that the reason the remains weren't headed to Hawaii immediately was because they had to be reviewed. In South Korea, the accounting agency would look for any anomalies, and then the forensics will begin when we land them in Hawaii where the laboratory is, he said. We don't know who's in those boxes, Mattis said, adding they could be missing Americans or Australian or French troops. On multiple occasions in the past, North Korean officials claimed the government possessed as many as 200 sets of American remains that had been recovered over the years, the accounting agency said.